Ishant Sharma appeals for an LBW, but it's pointless. Sai Sudharsan was the batter, and he hadn't scored yet. There is almost no chance of the man losing his wicket without scoring in a T20 game. In his first 38 T20s, he has scored 3 single-figure scores altogether. That's it. No one gets a start like him. He plays by his own rules. And so a few balls later, he effortlessly places a couple more balls to the rope. It's graceful and easy, and he gets past 10 runs yet again. Usually at this point, he would ease into his 20s or 30s, but this time he knocks the ball to mid-on and takes on the fielder only to run himself out. No bowler could tame him, but running when the ball is really close to the stumps is not a good idea. This innings was a failure, but he still managed to be consistent at the beginning again. And I'm going to be honest, I am obsessed with Sai Sudharsan. He may be the most consistent player in the IPL, or really any T20 cricket. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before. At the start of his career, he had 1 score in single figures, and even that one was a 9, right? This is just a batter who walks out and scores every single time. There is 1 blip in his record, and outside of that, he's the most metronomic batter in T20 cricket. The question of whether or not this is a good thing can be long and painful, but Sai Sudharsan is consistent. In a league where scores go up and down on moods or vibes, he is leading a one-man consistency revolution. There is no point having talent around you if you don't use it correctly. Every captain knows this, and it is the same of the sport of cricket as when you are trying to win Raid Shadow Legends, which sounds like a new cricket league if we're being honest. The difference is that instead of taking down arrogant openers or massive power hitters, you are fighting the Demon Lord and the Hydra. So if you want to use your leadership smarts from cricket in a new way, sign up to Raid Shadow Legends and participate in their Spring Hunt event where you can win some real life prizes such as gaming consoles, Amazon gift cards with a total value of $10,000 and a lot of other in-game prizes like legendary champions and more. All you've got to do is get Raid using the link in my description, enter in your Raid ID and join the competition at springhunt.polarium.com. But the heart of any game is its players, which is again a little bit like cricket. So Raid is launching its first ever community weeks. It is a super fun 14-day program giving away cool stuff as super hot legendary champion name Chronica Adelian. In case you don't know, she's the one who puts her enemies to sleep. To get her, all you've got to do is log in for 7 days between now and July the 8th. And the gifts, they don't end there. Use the link in my description or scan my QR code here on the screen and you will get a huge starter pack with an epic champion, Tyrell, and another starter pack after getting to level 25 that includes the epic Rector Druth. I like that name. Rector Druth should be a cricketer, right? And I'm already keeping stats on both of them in case I need to beat you, because you can actually play against me by finding my handle, The Good Jarrod. And after installing Raid via my link, make sure to use the promo code SPRINGHUMP24 to get silver and more. Who doesn't want silver? So click the link in the description and become the captain of your Raid Shadow League today. And let's take down those Demon Lords in the death overs. You might think that his T20 numbers are a bit of a fluke. Then in 38 matches, perhaps we would find something different if he just played a lot more, right? But his List A career suggests a very similar pattern. I mean, he only makes single figures so rarely. There's only 3 times here that he's actually managed to do it. This man just almost automatically starts in white ball cricket all the time. And if you think it's because he has slow starts, well, that would make sense. But he does not. He actually scores really quick early on, and we see a lot of Indian anchors with this pattern. They put pressure on the bowlers early and then they knock it around for ages. The thing is, he doesn't actually knock the ball around for that long. We talk a lot about average in cricket, but there are other ways of looking at batters' consistency, like mean. Of course, runs per dismissal is average, but runs per innings is mean. And you can see all the batters up the top here are just, really good, consistent, the best scorers, the biggest names, all those sorts of players. And then you have Sai Sudharsan. I mean, he's not exactly Clarkson, Conway, or Gill, is he? I mean, I would suggest that almost all of these players are pretty famous, and he is absolutely nowhere near that level. In fact, his mean of 37 is higher than Sky's, Kohli's, and David Warner's. Let's add something else, standard deviation. Most players follow this kind of normal pattern. You can see them all here and it makes a lot of sense. This is a decent method to work out how consistent players are. This is Sudharsan. I mean, he's absolutely no one else here. He's not near the bigger scorers. He's not near the bigger hitters. He's just Sai Sudharsan. He is his own man, enjoying his median score of 33 while the world burns. You're talking about a man with the mean of an elite top order batter with the standard deviation of what? A number 7? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. And you can see how different he is than all the other players. He's a complete league of his own making in here. And if this makes him the most consistent batter in the IPL, it's worth also having a look at the least consistent, Venki Iyer. When Venki comes out to bat, you probably expect him to fail, and if he doesn't fail early on, he's going to go on and make runs. With Sai, you expect him to make runs every time, but he's rarely going to go on to make some of the bigger scores that Venki will. So with Venki, it depends on which innings you've actually seen him bat and how you judge him based on that. Whereas Sudharsan, if you have seen him bat once, you have seen him bat every single time. And just to show you this in a slightly different way, the normal amount is 80. So it just shows how far off he is anything basic. Or maybe it means that he is the most basic. I'm not even sure, if we're being honest. But what I will say is this: if you want to say that Sai Sudharsan is the meanest player in the IPL, I'm pretty sure you can. He has just found a method of scoring between 20 and 40 in almost every innings. I mean, he's put himself in a box. So we have quite literally put his scores in a box. Almost every innings is between 20 and 40, and he rarely goes beyond that. Like he has a glass ceiling where he has to find a way to leave the crease. You probably don't believe me. You think I'm making all this up, right? He couldn't possibly really have a glass ceiling. What about the time when he made 43 and then he retired himself out? He didn't even wait to be dismissed. He just left the ground. This is the kind of player we are dealing with here. There is really nothing like him. It is as if his job is to make sure that the middle of every innings doesn't collapse in on itself. And it's very important to say this: he is not an anchor. That is for players who bat deep into the innings. He doesn't do that. He's also very obviously not a dasher. This is true strike rate since 2022, and we can see him down here. He's on the negative side. And you can see here that there aren't that many players who are actually negative at all. So he should be an anchor, but he has this artificial ceiling that stops him from going on. And I did wonder what that would be. You look at him here, and he seems to be a little bit more normal because the other players are actually near him for once. But this also shows that he's not really elite at anything. His true average is really good, but not life-changing, and he's slightly on the negative on true strike rate. But I figured there was something else that we needed to be able to find from him. So we wanted to have a look at him versus pace and spin. And this is where it becomes a little bit more clear. You can see here that he scored 282 runs from spin bowling. He's got a true strike rate of just in the negative, but still negative. But his true average here is elite. He is averaging 31 runs more against spin than a normal player would from the balls he has faced. That is extreme. However, we then have to come down to pace, where he's made 467 runs. And you can see he's got quite a negative true strike rate, and he's above true average, but he's a lot more normal in this area. So essentially, what is he great at? Not going out to spin bowling. And that's a really important skill to have. So let's just have a look at what he's good at when it comes to spin bowling. He is a left-hander and he loves leg spin. He scored 124 runs, he's got a great true average against it, and also he actually scores quicker than normal against it. But that is not the interesting one here. I think the interesting one is left arm finger spin. Most left-handers absolutely crush left arm finger spin. It's spinning back into them, and we already know he likes the ball spinning back into him. But he doesn't, right? It doesn't get him out, but he scores quite slow against left arm finger spin, like almost at the same rate he does against off spin. And that is spinning away from his bat. But what really sticks out here is right arm pace. It is rare to see a player struggle to score quickly against the thing you grew up facing the absolute most. I mean, bowling machines and throwdowns, they're all geared towards right arm seam. And he has a better record against off spin, despite the fact the ball is spinning away from his bat, than he does against the most common form of bowling in the entire world. For a left-hander, that is just absolutely bizarre. So this really cements him as a spin specialist. But he's a specialist in not getting out to spin, not really scoring all that quick against it. But I do think when you look at him against pace, it starts to make a little bit more sense why he scores between 20 and 40 so much. Because eventually, he has to face pace bowling again. And because of that, he usually bats at first drop, which makes a lot of sense because he can stay in for a couple of balls against pace at the end of the power play, and then straight away he will face the turning ball. So you batting him at number 3 or number 4 is probably when you're going to get the most use out of him. And when you have a look at the balls he faces per over, all of this makes sense. He basically starts to come in around the 5th over mark, and then he stays in until about the 11th or 12th over, and then there's a bit of a drop off all the way through the rest of the innings. And this makes sense because this is what he wants to face. This is when you're going to face the biggest percentage of spin, and that is quite clearly what is in the side to play. So it doesn't really make sense to use him as an opener. And it doesn't really make sense for him to come in around the 8th or 9th over because he would have already missed out of a little bit of spin. It makes sense to get him in around the 5th or 6th over almost every time. Which means that Sai Sudharsan is essentially a single usage batter. His job is to face spin and not go out to it without scoring all that fast against it. The only other player I can think of who does this role occasionally is R. Ashwin. So think of him this way, he's like a more consistent version of R. Ashwin. And when I say more consistent, I mean he's better at doing this job and also does this job more than Ashwin does. This is an incredible role within an IPL team. His job is essentially to block spin for a certain period of time and then get out and let other players handle the rest of the innings. Caution, this batter will self-destruct when pace is bowled. And so this means his record has a huge percentage of his runs with scores between 20 and 60. And this of course makes sense because he always gets a start and then has no power to kick on, especially against pace. But this one also shows what a giant weirdo he is. You can see Tilak Varma up here, who's also just another incredibly consistent player, even if he plays in a very, very different way. You've got Shivam Dubey over here, who is another middle order player, again, who likes to play spin. Jitesh Sharma and Rinku Singh, again, middle to later order players who like to hit the ball very, very hard. In fact, all of these players here, except for perhaps Rishabh Pant, are essentially hard-hitting players. Sai Sudharsan is not a hard-hitting player. I'm not even sure he feels comfortable trying to hit the ball hard. But honestly, no matter how we looked at him, he was incredibly unique. He is a great starting, terrible finishing, single usage spin player who plays in an incredibly unique way with a artificial glass ceiling. So I just wanted to show you his first class record. He has an average of 38 from 29 innings, and you can see we started with 100. He's a really good batter. That is not surprising at all. What is, I think, a little bit more surprising here is the fact that when he's playing against the red ball, he has lots of low starting scores. In fact, he has the same issue that kind of any other player would have in the red ball game. It's just that when he starts to play white ball cricket, all those problems go away and he starts brilliantly almost every time. He has actually made more single-figure first-class scores than he has combined in T20 and List A cricket, despite the fact you can see here he's played a lot more of that format of cricket. Sai Sudharsan is a white ball, middle overs renegade, and he does not play by your rules.